celluloid, and we're turning it into music and podcast for you.
Welcome everyone to another episode of We Came From Celluloid. I am Nicky P here as always with my bandmate, friend, and brother from another mother, and all around Mr. Leatherman, Mr. Brian Pritchard. How are we doing there?
Good, man. Good. It's already been a productive day. It's only 9:38 a.m. and I'm like I don't know. I had a big block of time while I was working on a project with my son this morning. Just did episode 2 of the Future Proof podcast for, business stuff, and I get to do some creative stuff today. I've been trying to set aside time blocks on Wednesday during the day, because my friend Max, who you've met, has a home studio environment, and I like the idea of just showing up and getting to play around with, sort of lack of agenda, you know what I mean? And see what comes out. And in fact, since I got that new drum set, um, I'm going to move my old drum set, I think, into his basement, which could lead to some interesting stuff. I like the idea that, like, coming up with a throwaway song, you could like accidentally come up with something great. I know we've talked about variations of that idea before, that just freeing yourself of the whatever attachments you have to like trying to define what like this band is, writing a song for a band or a project. um I love those songs too, but like, I don't know. Yeah, I also like the idea of intentionally trying to write something that you like wouldn't write for a band too. So yeah, that might be something I'll do later today, and I'm looking forward to it.
Nice. I will be visiting our Max next Wednesday to lay some vocals, hopefully.
You guys independently made plans? That's exciting.
Ryan, do you know me at all? When I'm ready to do shit, I do it. Like when it's time to say, "Hey, I need to record vocals for a song," I say, "Let me contact the gentleman that I will be recording those vocals with and make it happen."
I'm honestly just so not used to it, not having anything to do with you, just in life in general. There's not a lot of people that like take the ball and run with it. So good for you, Nick. I'm very happy.
Well, no. So, folks, what he means to say is he's not used to people that deal with Max taking the ball and running with it.
No, that's actually not on my mind at all. It's really just broadly speaking. I'm used to kind of having to nudge things along, like with music stuff, with business stuff, with a lot of things. People talk about what they want to do. You know what I mean? It's very easy to talk about all the things we're going to do. Make plans. Making plans and brainstorming is fucking easy. You know what I'm saying? Doing the thing is the thing that everybody like avoids. And so,
Well, I know that this isn't part of the Max thing because we all know that like how I operate when it comes time to actually booking things. All right, well, I have my people I'm contacting this week, and they will show up, and this is booked, and blah 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 blah. Usually, it's I book something, and then Noel takes a couple weeks to actually show up for it because he's got daddy duty, and one of the kids is sick, and this and that. It is different though. I'm like, because I do have the capacity to be recording myself. It is certainly new that I'm the guy going to the guy to do the recording, but it was a situation where like we're going to be working on Beetlejuice and maybe a one section of Brown Coat Man that I don't feel like recording in my room or in the studio here is going to be the appropriate place to kind of do what I need to do on those songs. I need a little bit more theater space for those particular recordings. So I figured let's call it Max and make it happen.
I'm gonna make a pivot there, segue, right? Theater space performance. You and I went to see this new Elvis movie a couple weeks back, and I honestly have thought about it a lot since then. I really enjoyed it. Did you have a good time and enjoy the Elvis picture?
It's still a little overshadowed because I got to see a sci-fi movie with you a few days later that I've been actually really looking forward to. But was definitely interested in the fact like it was a Baz Luhrmann documentary, and Baz Luhrmann to me is a very like highly stylized director, but not of I'm not used to thinking of him as doing documentaries. So it was this very artistically, clearly with an agenda version of a documentary about Elvis during the Vegas years. And I learned some interesting stuff, even like in a not like where it wasn't a documentary to like teach you a whole lot. It definitely it would put a few like elements, a few little factoids that like I guess I never really thought about. Like the idea that Elvis had never played outside of the North America was weird to me. Because you think of how big Elvis was, but then like the sheer number of gigs that he did in Vegas in his later years, like it's no wonder the guy like he say he died, you know, choking on pills and sandwiches on a toilet, you know, but he was doing like sometimes 3 shows a day during those Vegas runs, and you're like, that's stamina. Like the way that he did a show, that seems almost impossible to do in some ways. Like there's a big.
I've been around enough people uh playing with amphetamines and uppers like that, right? That definitely to me stood out in his physicality in the rehearsal space and stuff like that, and knowing what was going on with that at the time. It does all tie into going like, yeah, sort of like, we're not quite the same thing, but my mind goes to Michael Jackson and the propofol or whatever, like the sleep stuff that ended up killing him, and going like, I bet Elvis had some fucking half-assed doctor in his life that was giving him, a lot of speed, and I think it fucking killed the dude's heart. But like, yeah, he was amped up in a way that really did seem like that's not just natural. It's not just that he's digging the music. He was like cranked up, you know what I mean? And yeah, it seemed unhealthy too.
It's funny. I was watching some reel yesterday, and it was some dude talking about coming back from Vietnam, and and he brought some of like the his go pills that he got from like the military, because he had just said I had some of them left over, and like he gets at the airport, and they're like, sir. Yeah, what was this? Probably I was administered these by what's it called, blah blah blah, and then they bring up like the superior comes like, sir, are you aware this is speed? He'd be like, they're my go pills from the military, and they're just straight up giving a soldiers speed so they can like survive the jungle.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay when people,
Wow. Wow. Wow.
but just the idea of like
It's not surprising. I mean, wasn't like that sort of shit is what led to good old Jacob's ladder. You know what I mean? That's part of the foundation of that whole story is like soldiers being experimented on in Vietnam and stuff like that. But yeah, no, that doesn't surprise me. I hadn't heard that story, but it doesn't surprise me. But no, hearing him cover those Beatles tunes, I thought was really cool. I was looking. There's a soundtrack for it on iTunes. Doesn't have any of that stuff, so it's buried inside and it didn't look like he really did much of it on stage. It just looked like during rehearsals, those must have been enough like in the popular culture and in the air at that time that like he just wanted to jam on with his bands and But it made me happy to see one icon covering another icon. I'm like, damn, that's crazy hearing Elvis cover the Beatles, you know?
Well, it's funny you mentioned like the Beatles there, and well, the thing that I was thinking in my head is, I'm not sure if you remember, like it would have been when we were still in high school. Do you remember when they released the new Elvis song? Elvis had released the song in a number of years because obviously he was dead, but they released a little less satisfaction, or like a little more conversation, a little more action, whatever.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But the reason they released that song as a dance song, in a particular way that they did, was because they wanted Elvis to have more hits in Europe or in England than the Beatles. And so they put that number out, and he officially had more number ones, I think, in England than the Beatles because of that song, like getting as popular as it did. And it was just somebody like who owned his catalog or whatever thought it would be an interesting little anecdote in history, a little footnote there.
It's funny because the one I do remember, as you were saying, like, remember that, song they released after I'm going, not at all. What I remember is Real Love from the Beatles coming out with the Anthology series, right? Do you remember that song?
I remember the anthology series coming out. I could never quite get into the Beatles. It's funny. It's like I had a was very very close with my music teacher in high school because I was friends with his son, and they were both Beatles people, but more than Beatles people, they were both Beach Boys people. And so I kind of always firmly came up on the Beach Boys side of things. Like, basically, you either believe that the Beatles are the greatest band ever or the Beach Boys are. And it's no comparison. I always say, no, since, Paul McCartney thought that the Beach Boys were the best band ever, I'd side with him on that one.
That's funny. I mean, I hear people talk about Beatles versus the Stones. I've always really loved the Bill Murray quote of there's two types of people, those who love Neil Diamond and those who don't. She loved him about his ex-wife from What About Bob, but no, I don't know that I heard people go, it's the Beatles or the Beach Boys, you pick.
And I think it's more of an in the course of history. Like, so obviously, during the time was the Beatles and the Stones because it was the competition. Britain's always been the competition for who the most important band in Britain is. Like when we were younger, it was Blur or was it Oasis? Who's the biggest band in the world? And technically, Blur won on the day but lost the war, kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't even know who the fuck Blur is, to be honest. I know at least who Oasis is.
Blur is one of my favorite bands. You'd probably know the Blur's frontman more for what he did after Blur, which was Gorillaz.
Interesting. I saw that goofy guy on Saturday Night Live the other day.
Yeah, he was a couple weeks ago. But yeah, I mean, Blur never, they only ever had the one song here, song two, that like got popular, but they had album after album in Europe over in England that was huge. And frankly, I am a huge fan of the music because it's definitely very British. Like he sings with an English accent and like does that, and it works awesome. Like the songs are also super Englishy in like their context. Like yeah, Park Life or Legend of a Charmless Man kind of shit. And they're just very like, oh, you guys are very English and this is quaint, isn't it? But the idea that like later on he's had a number of bands throughout history, but Blur and then eventually Gorillaz overshadowing them like in from like a global stage has always been interesting to me. So
Well, yeah, and then I think it was literally as we were walking out of Elvis that one of the other marquees has the "Good luck, have fun, don't die," which I then say, "Hey, my sister's boyfriend said that that was like the best sci-fi movie that he'd seen, and now I want to see it." And you went, "I told you I wanted to see it like a month ago." You know what I mean? And I was like, "Okay." And so we went. I one thing. Well, then what I'll just say briefly is that I immediately thought of how another one of my favorite sci-fi movies is Edge of Tomorrow, which then became Live Die Repeat, and thinking about how, boy, they've really made it, tougher than they needed to with that title. You know what I'm saying? That like good luck, have fun, don't die is a great appropriate title for the work, but it's one of those things, and uh hard to market, hard to market, hard to market. You know what I'm saying? I'm like,
Well, I will say they promoted the hell out of that movie. I watched that trailer so many times, like that it got pitched to me.
it never made its way to me at all. At all. I never, it was not on my radar at all.
And I think that they were trying to I think they were trying to make it feel not necessarily like a sci-fi movie, but like something bigger and weirder than a sci-fi movie. Like the idea behind
You have that I'm thinking about how Everything Everywhere All at Once also has a really fucking long title and won Best Picture, right? Like a couple years ago. Didn't it make it all the way to Best Picture? I didn't really like that movie, to be honest, but I think it did win. I remember Short Round winning his Best Supporting Actor Oscar, which was nice, but what's his name? K Hai Kwan, something like that. I liked him.
I don't remember, honestly. Like I remember that movie coming out. It was nothing that interested me, so I didn't bother with it. I was there was other stuff on there.
But I'm just thinking about how, like, it's like, oh god, and having not even seen the trailer as you were describing that I'm going, yeah, I could see how from a marketing perspective somebody could have tracked and gone, that was a success to a fairly large degree, both financially and critically, and tried to present something heady along those lines. I mean, you had Being John Malkovich, number of years ago, kind of managed to break through kind of into the mainstream for a minute, but
I mean, 90% of that's because you have John Cusack like labeled in the movie. I think at the time. Yeah, what's funny is that I haven't even bothered to look and see like how well the movie actually did. I know it wasn't in the theaters very long, but what it is these days. Um, but I haven't looked to see like is it actually doing well on Rotten Tomatoes or anything like that. I've just kind of went and let I went I let I went and I went and just kind of let the experience be my experience for that movie. I haven't heard anybody talk about it. Usually, like I've got a couple people I'll follow for movies online, and I didn't even check any of them. Really, I didn't really care. I mean, I think I've been so busy in life, it didn't matter to me. But I was very very. Some of the stuff I guess seemed very very on the nose to me within the scope of the movie and like the writing. But at the same time, it was super interesting and it was very very fun. Um, it did things that I think had they happened a couple years earlier in film, I might have gotten pissed off and oh, they're just trying to make some stupid political statement. But like we've been kind of out of that world enough where I see less and less of it overtly. That like oh, it's just a fun element of a movie. The thing in particular that comes to mind was just like the joke that they make about school shootings, which could have been a very overtly political joke, but it was like kind of a necessary part of the setting in this movie. And the way that they approached it wasn't from a political standpoint. It was just a here's a thing that happens. It's kind of a sick part of American culture. And we're just going to take it for granted that it's a part of American culture and run with it. So, like, the idea that, like, oh, this is your first, like, some people have had, like, multiple school shootings on the same kid. Like, it was played for a bit, and I appreciated the way they managed to approach it for sure.
no, it's like stuff like 1984 and the many many works that Orwell's stuff inspired. You know what I mean? That's almost become its own sort of genre that I feel like regardless of who was in power politically at any given time, there's enough of those things sort of entrenched into social hierarchy or whatever, this us versus them, rage against the machine, you know what I'm saying? It's like that there is a thing that people feel, and maybe young people in particular, or whatever, that there are people in power and decisions being made, and all this stuff, right? And even to find ourselves at a moment in history where some of those things are way more on people's minds and in conversation than at other moments.
I mean, you can just watch them happen more up front in front of your face. Like we watch people. Like what is it? What is it, like a 78% we don't want to be in Iran right now, like from the country's standpoint, and yet what are we doing? Because people at our higher level are making decisions that don't really give a shit what we think anyways. And it's frustrating as a person to watch that happen.
Yeah, and so there were things that to me right off the rip in that movie, hearing people say get off your phones, right? When I go see Puscifer in concert or Tool in concert, and I did really enjoy the experience of how strict they were about the phones and stuff like that. But like, there's also this feeling. Maynard has now devoted his last two albums, Existential Reckoning and Normal Isn't, are basically combined, 20 plus songs, 20 or 25 songs that are kind of redundant in feeling to me in terms of bringing up that same point. But I also have said for years that like there can be a sense. I've never really been a protester, but I don't want to live in a world where that doesn't exist. Is how I've put it. Right. That I the world needs to have people who are trying and care enough to try. I don't want to live in a world of complacency, even when it's sometimes I can point to any number of gestures that somebody else makes. And for me, I feel like, God, I have a hard time justifying, spending the time. I don't know. Ultimately, I end up, as much as I can rationalize it, there's probably a simpler answer, which is just that, like, yeah, I can be selfish with my time. You know what I'm saying? And I'm grateful for the fact that people care about that. Tying that back into stories, I'm saying, even at a moment, frankly, where I'll give an example that I found cringy. I loved Jessica Jones season one. Jessica Jones season two, I remember feeling immediately like the dialogue no longer felt like real conversations that people have. They felt like a writer with an agenda get that trying to like lecture me through their characters. You know what I'm saying? And insert these ideas through their characters. But I'm saying on the one hand that I don't want to live in a world without that. And a lot of work that I admire has those qualities. I guess one way of looking at it is that you can either be a fucking good storyteller or a shitty storyteller and be real.
Well, no, and that was my point. That was my ultimate point because you know me and Jessica Jones season two. We've had that conversation many times. But it's the idea of you can either write well or write shitty. Like I don't mind people having an agenda. I'm a big fan of Orwell. Amusingly, people use Animal House or Animal Farm to kind of be an anti-communist fable when in fact Orwell was in fact a communist, and it was more a matter of we like the Trotskyists versus the the Leninist communists. It's whichever flavor of communism we like better was more of the story for Orwell. But take it as it is. He had things to say. It is certainly like to me it was you have a way to do things that works and feeds the narrative, or you have a way to do things that just feels like unnecessary dialogue. And that was always a problem with Jessica Jones. It's because it was such a stiff departure from the writing of the first season and it just didn't make sense in the context of the show that that would be like you spent an entire season building up what a badass this character is and kind of make me fall in love with that. And then you're kind of like it seemed like, well, every man is a threat to her. Well, no, it's not at all the case. She's a badass. We've already established this. So now you're kind of like doubling back on how you wrote this character to be, and it seems stupid. Anyways, how did you end up walking out of that theater? Like I walked out like very happy.
Yeah, no, I went in cold intentionally that I hadn't seen a trailer. It was John who'd seen it recommending it and your interest that and my liking Sam Rockwell enough who's on the poster and so I know that he's involved, right? But beyond that, I was like this is a rare opportunity. I say opportunity like right now if I open up the Regal app, there surely are movies I haven't heard of that I could go in blindly, but I'm not going to. I'm not, in fact, willing to give my time to. Oddly enough, even with bands, I feel that same reluctant where it's like no, I don't want to go in like and like just on a whim and find out like spend an hour finding out if a band is good or spend 2 hours finding out if a movie's any good, which is admittedly kind of a lousy attitude to have as a creative type. You sort of want people to not feel that way. But yeah. All that to say, it was I don't know that I can think of very many. I'd really have to sit and think about the last time I went to a movie theater without having seen a trailer first, right? And that enhanced the experience tremendously. I loved that movie. I look forward to seeing it again. Um, it probably I have a weird feeling that like it won't be better the second time than it was the first time, in part because of some of those reasons. Coming in cold, stuff like that. Like I'm probably slightly overinflating it in my mind as like, oh my god, that was like one of the best things I'd seen in a long time. But I just also genuinely liked it. I really did like.
I have a feeling there's gonna be a lot of stuff that I didn't even notice in it. This is one of those movies that like I can't wait to hear the commentary on. Like the commentary track is the reason that movie exists. If for no other reason than to hear the director talk about Sam Rockwell like playing that character and just him chewing up scenery with it, which he did. It's super fun. Um, man, I hope people are going to learn their lesson in the next couple of years on why physical media is so damn important. But you know, always waiting.
During these windstorms the last few days, you ran out of power. Did you still could you get on a lap?
Oh no, Brian, I've not had power most days of the week this past week. Like I'd come home from like the quote unquote day job, and power would be out until like 2 in the morning. So it's been a weird kind of week like that. Like I had difficulty getting on working because no, I don't have a laptop that functions at that level right now. I've got a DVD player, but once again, it kind of just needs to be plugged in to last for any real length of time. So I've just been watching stuff on my phone. We have a battery block that we use to keep the phones charged and lights and stuff working.
There's oddly enough, like I have some memories of moments like that, even when they are short lived and the battery's dying. That like I don't know, I'm quite fond of. It's a fascinating impulse, even sitting in like darkness and like it's huddled up. That I'm like, I still want to watch 20 minutes of Quantum Leap on my phone right now, you know. But I will.
Well, for us, it doesn't have to always change a whole ton because we're campers here, so we have all the camping gear to do camping stuff, and so we can live pretty normally. Like when the power goes out, we just gotta pull a few items out of the garage. Basically, what it amounts to. Or I think actually maybe from the basement is where Liz has been keeping like the stuff that we use a lot because been a lot of power outages in the past year in this neighborhood. So
Well, I didn't. I was lucky in that the lights and main power didn't go off. Our internet was spotty, was my big, complaint, right? But you reminded me of it just talking about the physical media side, because like that always is. I have smug satisfaction when everybody's internet is down, and I'm sort of like, I have so many choices, so many choices. The meteor yesterday, people were talking about we had a meteor yesterday. The timing as we're recording this, there was a meteor that exploded in the sky yesterday, and it made me think of Creep Show, right? And the Stephen King segment of of Creep Show. And it's not streaming anywhere, but it's sort of like no big deal. I've got Creep Show upstairs. I'll go grab Creep Show, right?
Pretty sure I've got that one up there too. Always been a fan. It's the rare Romero meets Stephen King thing that you get back when like Stephen King could have fun with his writing and stuff. So, anyways, boss.
I hear you. No more time. Yeah, we should, right?
Well, yeah, it's we're hitting that half hour mark, and we don't want to give him too much of an insight into what's going on in our world. Just enough, just a glance, just that weekly little nibble into the inside world. Anything you want to send them off with today?
I don't know.
Go find some satisfaction, people. That's what the man said. That's what the man said.
Celluloid, and we're turning it into